I'm going to play two versions of the same song here for you, just a bit of it, and see if you can tell me where the versions fade into each other. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? The first version is essentially a messy version of the second. It's got all this extra distortion and probably a low pass filter so you can't get the full depth out of each part. It sounds so distant. The second version has all of those lower notes of the guitar that are chopped off, and you can hear each key of the piano slowly fade out if you really listen. Technically speaking, it's clearly superior. But which one did you like more? Which one made you start crafting a scene in your head? When I was writing about Unbeatable, the story these songs came from, I only ever listened to the worse version. Something about it just pulled me in more than the other. And the same goes for the whole game. It's flawed, deeply flawed. A pacing that left me thinking I'd glitched the game, the flood of characters leaving main ones underdeveloped, important cutscenes that were just idle animations, yet I couldn't get enough. I haven't seriously played video games in 10 years. I never just come home and plop on the couch like I used to. But with this one, I wanted to so bad. It was scratching at the back of my mind like brain poison, and I wanted to be in its story again. I hated that it was over late on a Sunday, leaving me with that listless feeling of, what now? I wanted to write about it, understand it, I guess you could say, beat it. And I don't know if I have. I mean, it's literally called Unbeatable. But I think I figured out why I wanted to so much. All those things wrong with it, well, they're kind of what makes it so special. They're what makes art so special. This is a story about art, perfection, losing your way, and fighting to get it back. I think we find a fitting start in an often uncited quote originating from Antony de Saint-Exupéry's Airman's Odyssey. Perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. It isn't totality, yet it isn't nothingness either, but rather it's the space right next to the latter. It's probably best seen with an example. To keep us in the realm of media, let's use the perfect movie, Perfect Blue, because even just the opening sequence of that will do. Mima is a pop idol in the trio Champ, but pressured by her agent to break into acting instead, making this her last musical performance. The movie is all about this change, and so it first has to establish a baseline. What is her life like before? Well, this scene physically does that, cutting between her performance and her daily life, singing, shopping, everything alike. The basic grocery store where she has anonymity, the small apartment. She is a performer, but she isn't famous. You can get why an agent is pushing for more. But you can get why she isn't because it just seems peaceful. I mean, these two sides are contrasted, of course, a fictional performance and a very real life which are distinct, but look at how the motion carries between them. They're not opposed. She glides between them effortlessly because her life is balanced. She is not this very distinct performer and Mima the regular person, she's just Mima. She is in control. But then the movie carries on and this stops. Instead of motion carrying through, Mima is quite literally thrust between real life and fiction, surprised by the cut and uncertain of which is which. And we, as the viewer, feel the same because the rules the movie is playing by have changed. There's no longer a clear cut, no longer easy motion, no longer balance in her life as she's losing her mind. The way the movie is cut is part of developing the themes. The first scene introduces the character and tells us something about her, sets a baseline for audience expectation to be broken later, builds up a sense of energy to hook us, not to mention impressing with how interesting it is, presents the consequences of what she can both gain and lose alike by leaving Cham, and even more. And it does it all in just a few minutes. And this is what makes Satoshi Kon's work so special. Nothing is out of place. Every single moment, every cut, angle, piece of music, every aspect of the filmmaking is doing 4 things at once. It's all intentional. And you do that not by adding more things for it to do, more things that you have to handle, but by removing everything it can't do. After all, that's the best way for such messy creatures to keep track of it all. Humans are too complicated to achieve perfection with anything but reduction. The same is true of a song then. You pick what theme the song should have, what the one thing it should do is, and then you remove everything which doesn't aid that one thing. You take away the interference, the grit and the grain, and let each note be heard in total clarity so that the entirety of their interplay can be perceived. The pink version of Metro quite literally has depth that the blue version doesn't, because blue has too much stuff in it for that depth to be heard. The sense is overwhelmed by other things. So to give a proper definition of perfection, at least for our purposes here today, it is the most minimalistic solution to a given problem. This doesn't mean it has to be one single note or something, just that it has to have a clearly defined situation that it has to be determined with regards to. Perfect Blue is the perfect theatrical display of how fiction and reality blur, but not the best essay about how fiction and reality blur, nor the best theatrical display about how trains operate. A bridge, which reaches 99% of its breaking point in the most extreme with the least material, is the perfect way to cross that gap. The food which activates your taste buds and the memories within you the most with the least ingredients is the perfect food for you. And the perfect story is... What if music was illegal, but you did crimes? Well, that would be unbeatable. You play as Beat, a girl who wakes up in a new world where Harm, harmonics and resonance management, employs an iron fist to prevent music, given it makes dangerous monsters known as the Silence appear. But with her outside perspective and rebellious spirit, a gang of musicians forms around Beat despite Harm's best efforts. Quaver, the daughter of Eve, a famous musician and the last ever to perform a large show, the very one where the Silence began. Treble, the calm half of Prodigy twins, who kept playing despite the bans and at the cost of an arm, and importantly for today, the other half Clef, who fills the entire attitude quota for them both using words and fists. We find most of our topic in how she speaks about music. Having gained enough of a following to put on regular shows, as rich clients buy Harm's silence and locals keep their secrets, the quad begins thinking of what to do to secure this stability. Maybe an album? It would keep them from living off of secondhand pizza, at least. That is, if their low-quality recordings don't hold them back. Penny, a friend of the band, has to take their rough cuts, which sound like this, and do a whole bunch of processing to get them to a studio-quality record like this. The change is night and day, and Clef admits that it's good, that people would listen to this, but that she wouldn't. And Clef isn't fucking around when it comes to music. You don't get arrested for performing and sent to black sites with no regulation and regularly scheduled fights almost 10 times and not know what's important about music. So why wouldn't she listen to this polished version? Well, it's because even if Penny says,
I mean, all the stuff from you guys still went into it.
She's wrong. The stuff isn't just the music. Something of them was lost. What Penny brings to them is theoretically the most perfect they could play this song. It is a possibility where all the equipment is fine-tuned, the mics are in just the right places, the room is dampened all around, everyone is at 100% and, well, even more. With all the right conditions and equipment, they could play it this way. But that isn't what happened when it was recorded. It's never happened at one of their shows. This isn't Clef's drumming, this is the drumming of some imaginary version of Clef who exists in a world much different from this one. It lacks the anger she might have been feeling that day, which made the drums too loud and too fast. thinking about how harm just destroyed more of their community. It lacks the way that one of the hats was set up wrong and doesn't sound quite right because Beat or Quaver or Treble made her laugh while she was unpacking. That stuff, those flaws, well, they aren't pure music, they are still the result of Clef's real life and emotions, and that communicates something about the day, the band, about her. Her drums should sound angry because she is angry. The recording should be rough and have crowd noise because it is an act of community. When you polish a song down to just the instruments at their best, you trade all of that context for perfection, all of the artist for the art. And while that makes it great for one problem, where does it land for everything else? If it's the perfect song for a fan of one genre, of one theme, won't it be further from the fans of every other one since it lacks extra detail? Not everyone can enjoy a specific genre, but everyone can feel angry. Everyone can enjoy the energy of a crowd. And that means all that context, all those imperfections are things people can relate to. They can not love the song, but enjoy a live version because it's angry, because it has the energy of stomps and claps and cheers. I mean, some of my favorite title fight songs aren't my favorite ones when they're studio, but when they're live, because they had the right energy, the emotion, they rose further up the list. It was Ned's longer notes, it was Clef's angry drumming. Someone can relate to what's in there because a person is obviously behind it, with flaws and dispositions and everything. Can we say the same about the polished version? With perfectly balanced drums, is there any Clef behind it, or just an equivalent skill to that of Clef? And that something about the artist which is lost might be more important. Think about the situation where music is illegal. If they publish this perfect recording that garners everyone's awe, that can be pretty important. You need people to like music in order to fight for it, and as we said before, that is fighting for expression itself. This is a very important battle that requires skill and being impressive. But is it enough for people to just like the song? Isn't it better if they like it and know the person behind it too? If Unbeatable is the most famously perfect band and takes all the attention and seems perfect and they get busted by harm, then suddenly there's just a vacuum and despair and no one knows how to help because they don't know who to help. But if Unbeatable is a somewhat growing in fame local band that has show regulars and harm shows up to bust them, would those regulars fight to keep themselves? Would it be worth the fight given these people they don't just see but feel? This is exactly what happens when the local community you've been helping and performing for comes out to literally fight harm so that you can escape during a show. They don't do this because you made a song they like. They do it because you're right there, a part of the community with them, because they hear you fighting for them in the music. All of your efforts to communicate with them because you've allowed yourself to be real, human, and known rather than perfect. This is why Clef doesn't want and wouldn't listen to a perfect mix. The situation isn't calling for a perfect musician, it's calling for a diverse resistance. The best thing she can do for the music she loves under harm is to make it relatable, energetic, expressive, a direct contrast to the stringent order of harm, to show people what they're missing. A scuffed-ass recording is literal proof that musicians can operate out in the open and bring people together even under oppression, which a studio sound always lacks. It says, this is possible, get the fuck out here with us. Perfect music is not perfect for this situation. The same is true of the blue version of Metro. It's not a perfect song, but it is the perfect piece for the title screen of Unbeatable, a game which is, as we've hopefully shown, about the importance of imperfection. An introspective story about emergent moments, a sound which feels almost like it's coming from a distant speaker while you stare out the window is perfect for that. It places you in the context of the visuals, waiting on the train with nothing to do but think. It primes you to understand the game. It's possible to like this version of the song, even if you don't like the song itself, because it isn't just music. It is giving you more to work with, something to create around it in your head, to interpret it further, because there are more options to it, not just notes. It becomes more available to you like a flawed musician. It is the perfect song to be the title screen of Unbeatable, and nothing else. Unbeatable goes further into how distant perfection makes someone, though, examining not just the musician and the listener, but the mother and the daughter. Can a relationship which is meant to be close even be so if one of them is perfect? Eve didn't just stop performing by choice at that final concert. Sure, she was choosing to since it was meant to be a farewell performance, but it stopped being a choice when someone ended her life. Quaver was right there to witness it, and it leaves her obsessed with her mother, trying to recreate old photos of her and play music just the same. The girl's whole life, down to how she looks and changing her hair from pink to blue, revolves around basically trying to be her mother. And sure, that's a reaction to loss, but it's also clearly more. It's trying to know who someone was by literally living their life. The problem isn't just that Eve died, it's that Eve died before Quaver ever truly knew her, even though she admired her so much. It's as Rest, temporary villain and former bandmate of Eve, says late into the game. She never saw her mother mess up once. Because of that, her whole life has been spent aching for a mother so perfect she never existed. Eve's motto was a silly thing: all sausage, no make, meaning never let anyone see how hard you work, because seeing a messy process changes the perception of the final product. For the music to be just the music, it can't have all of the extras. All that stuff changes it. A purity of the craft is perfection. The problem is that no one can know you when you live like that because no one is perfect. Just look at how her own daughter reacts to her coming close on stage. Those wide eyes, the strained reach out as she walks away. She is literally failing to reach to her mom, up on a stage of lights under thousands of gazes, instead of right next to her. It's left a similarly unreachable example. A parent provides better opportunities for their child, after all, right? Quaver has a much nicer home than her mother ever had, so shouldn't she be able to do even more? Doesn't she have to do even more? She can see all of her own flaws, her anger, her anxiety. We can't not know these things about ourselves. But other people can hide them, like a perfect mother. As a young, naive Quaver saw from her, isn't a good person not supposed to have any bad qualities? Isn't a good person supposed to be good at everything first try? She's left chasing an ideal that never existed, and it's a big part of why she breaks down at the end. Why keep trying when you can't even reach what you see as the starting line?
I need you to help me here.
I'll just screw it up. I've screwed up everything. I'm tired.
So she has to essentially become her mother to understand how she did it and be anything at all. So far away, she had to replicate each photo exactly, because only then can she know for certain she stood where her mother stood, seen what her mother has seen, felt what she's felt. If she does that, won't she be her? Of course she has a breakdown when one of those photos is burned, because that's like 1/10 less of a chance for her to reach the goddamn starting line. It's why she waits up all night for Beat to come home and be able to use her Walkman to listen to a hardly 10-second demo of one of her mother's songs, and why that's so huge. It is a demo, an unfinished, imperfect recording. This is one of the sweetest parts of the game. Those grainy vocals that record the location, that bad equipment that records their status, the little yeah that records her anxiety and cuts off at the end, asking if she's good enough instead of knowing in a single word. This isn't the musician on stage, this is a real person. A little glimpse into an Eve who struggled, who felt anxious, who didn't always know what was next or have every word. Sometimes she just had a single line. And if even Eve felt that way and was still so great, then everyone can. Quaver can, right? If Beat can make her see that yes, losing her does hurt, and yes, it's because she took up so much space, then wasn't that something Eve wasn't perfect about? They move forward into a better future because Quaver finally sees how the sausage is made. It's why she changes her hair in the end. She's not trying to be a perfect Eve anymore. If we only witness perfection, we'll only ever be aware of our flaws. So the demo isn't a perfect song, not even close, but it's much better. It's a perfect image of Eve for Quaver to finally have and take some pressure off. Just make one line and go from there. And it goes even one step further. Perfection doesn't just distance us from the crowd or the people close by, but it distances us from, well, us too. This is what happens to Beat, who sides with Penny on mastering their albums. They need to start thinking about which songs to include, what order they go in, getting good recordings, getting it out to the people. Especially because, as she says,
we're always barely scraping by. We've been able to pretend we're fine for 3 months. It will take 3 seconds for us to not be able to do that anymore.
They're hanging on tight, so having a source of actual funding would allow them to relax so much more, and you need a polished product for that, right? You have to impress because people pay for what they can't do themselves. So to some degree, Beat is right. A safety net makes things more relaxed and more true. But the problem is, it leads to her doing a whole lot that isn't really what a musician does. Setting up a mic to grab some rough demos is easy enough. Just set it out in front and press record. For the most part, you're still focused on playing. If anything, the lack of skill with a recorder exemplifies this. Why would you be great with recording if you've always been a live performer? But needing to get good, clean quality means more setup time. Needing to correct any mistakes means more repetition in the studio. Making a product means more previewing and choosing labels and packing discs. And if you can't afford to hire someone to do this, suddenly you're only actually playing music half the time, even though the goal is to have people listen to music. Yes, Beat is still practicing and playing the gigs, so she's playing the same amount, but she's losing sleep to get the album ready, relaxing less so it feels like there's less time, and so a lower percentage of her being is actually playing music now. To get that perfect product, there's still a lot of extra stuff. It's just that extra stuff is removal rather than addition. To limit the product down to something perfect means the process has to become disproportionately massive, requiring more work across more roles and more equipment, each one which needs its own depth and expertise, which means this isn't even linear growth but exponential. Diminishing returns sets in quick on perfection. And this can't be known because while people might like flaws in the music, crowd noise and emotion, they don't want flaws in the delivery, a messed up CD or 10 minutes of mic setup before the song starts. We don't want all flaws, we want the ones that communicate something about what we care for. I mean, you'd be pissed if you paid me for a CD and I gave you an album cover, right? So the process, which requires a bunch of non-music, non-cared for stuff, inherently hides itself in being perfect. The part where Beat is existing more and more and more, all of this effort must be erased from view. Not only does she get less time with this thing it's supposed to be about, but all the time spent on other aspects of it is actually impossible to see. And these aspects, you know what they do to her? They make her more exhausted, and so her voice recovers less, and so she sounds worse and has to edit the tracks more, so not only is it more work, but it's making more work from being more work, which makes more work from being more work, and then there's the fight it leads to within the band, which are the same thing. Will you play as well with people who are mad at you? Will you give it your all for someone who already says you don't give a shit? Less enjoyment means more to correct, and the work cycles in on itself. And what does this mean for Beat, most readily defined as a musician? She doesn't have a home in this world, or a family, or a job, or anything. She is her music. Hell, she says it directly.
The shit I do is the shit I am.
But actual music is now such a lesser part of her life. She is a lesser part of her life. Everything is just requirements to exist. This is why she's so tired and irritable, because Beat isn't Beat. Someone as hardworking as her doesn't hate all of the effort, she's used to that. But the shift in her personality is because she's not existing as herself, as that most important role, but as requirements. And who's going to be happy when they're a requirement? Who's going to feel like the work is divided fairly when all of their efforts are unperceived? She bitches out her best friends unfairly and falls right into a manipulator's trap because there is no Beat to care about these people or to watch out for herself when she is just requirements. We can sum it up with one equation. If you make a song in a week or in a month, which one is more natural? The latter is too polished to be. It's not a bunch of small parts of you and your situation presented as they are. It's a few core, still important but not totally representative aspects polished to a shine. to make something perfect is to exist less. And this is why Clef responds to beats concerned about what their sound should be by saying,
The sound of it is what we sound like, Beat.
it's because the second you start to question what the sound is, you've changed it. It stops being natural when you can listen back and judge it over and over. It stops being natural when you're thinking about it when performing because your mindset, your tension is now different. A natural state is inherently unseen. Just playing to play is simple. It's you, it's existing, and there's not much more to it. But when there's a pressure because of all the setup time and expectations and deadlines, the sound is going to change because you have changed. This is why thinking about the process often ruins it. Everything that was once easy, assumed, becomes the target of a question, of control as a variable, of weighting against the others. You can't remove what you don't know exists after all, so you have to examine everything. And when you start looking at everything with problems in mind, everything is going to be a problem. And you can't unknow. The perception is always there. The process is always changed once you start. This isn't to say that a careful process can't lead to good things. Perfect Blue exists after all, and as a friend's gift has shown me just how careful a process it was. It's terrifying how much thought went into a film like this. You can draw the right conclusions, limit away the right things, and end up with something that's great, that's still fun to put together, that still speaks to true and human qualities. Getting more professional doesn't spell the death of creativity, but it does make it harder to be true. It does mean you have to consciously decide that it needs a human element. It does mean it will never be as natural again, that you can never lower the bar for what people expect from you without consequence, because now that's the standard. Perfection is a one-way street, a narrow path forward. So sometimes the best way to grow might be to not think about it, to not fix what isn't broken. If something is just happening without all the extra struggle, if there are no signs of impending loss, is it worth the risk to ask one question and open oneself up to 100? Will fixing that one thing just break 10 others? Rest likes racing. She likes it because of why everyone else hates it. It's boring, the same thing over and over and over. But that's what perfection is. Those drivers and engineers and pit crew have figured out how to do the same exact thing in the same exact way in the same exact time over and over. Try to throw something in the same spot 50 times in a row. It's fucking impossible. And yet these people will take the exact right corner 50 times in a race with machines weighing thousands of pounds and consisting of thousands of parts. It's essentially a song which has mastered one genre. It won't appeal to a large audience. In fact, most people will actually see it as simple and annoying. But to the people who know, it'll be the greatest thing they've ever seen. The sport limits itself to true perfection because the point of sport is limitation, to become the one and only first place. Through a system of measurements and strict rules, one driver is crowned the winner. While some may be in it simply for the love of the game, and they all enjoy it and it presents many great human qualities, the problem which is being solved is victory. How do you get the lowest time? The point isn't to make the audience a better person, the point is to win. Perfection is perfect for racing. But what is the point of art? Maybe the award shows count as measurement, and maybe the followers and sales do, but not every act of them takes place in a system. Treble and Clef don't play to make money. As we said, they play to make community, and what's at the root of community? People. Adam Savage defines it as sharing a point of view. Lambel declared, "I speak from my difference." Even Aristotle wrote, "The practice of art is the study of how to bring something into being, the cause of which is in the producer and not in the product." No matter who you ask for a definition of art, that definition can't be separated from the artist, from expressing something human. It isn't to win, it is to feel. And you can't measure feeling. You can't say that one kind of song makes everyone feel this or that, because we're all too unique and f***ed up to all agree on anything, even from the start of our consciousness. There is no one problem to be solved to perfect an art. There are 8 billion. And even then, it can't be perfect, because if no two people are the same, then no matter how close, each person would have to make their own art for their own selves, and something would be lost in translation between artist and observer. And if that's so, there's nothing to share, and the process is pointless. If the point of art is to express something human, and perfection removes the human elements, then we can say for certain that perfection is not applicable to art. The only means by which such messy creatures can achieve it is incompatible with the goal. The best works aren't loved because they're perfect. They're loved because of what that perfection allows them to do, which is to make us feel something more strongly than other works. Perfect Blue isn't great because of its technical proficiency, the way it understands how to cut a scene together. It's great because it uses that knowledge to express something else, the story of how we can lose ourselves in fiction. And this is why I didn't and won't get Unbeatable out of my fucking head. It's messy. Oh boy, is it messy. There is so much hinted at depth with Treble that goes literally nowhere, to the point I had to ask you all to say nice things about him in order to not be totally left out of this video, especially because he and Clef are non-existent in the entirety of the last act, because there were 4 separate villain stories to wrap up, some of which were literally just introduction, don't see them for half the game, conclusion. The pacing genuinely left me googling to see if my game had glitched or something, and a lot of these themes rely on things you just infer as logical because a character said they happened within some time skip or off screen. And even though the ending is heartfelt, it's not really cohesive with the rest of the game. I mean, are Beat's old bandmates supposed to be the people from Eve's final show? Or was that just the character models they had? A lot is open in an almost annoying way. But here I am, writing 5,250 words so far on it once again, because holy does it make you feel something. Holy is it one of the most genuinely human creations I've ever seen. The flaws matter, of course they do. Enough of those, and no amount of heart is going to save a story. But the point is that a work which is made primarily to be perfect will suffer more from its flaws because there is nothing behind them. A hole in the story just reveals a hole in the story, a view to nothing. But when there's heart behind it, when someone is trying to express something, a hole can often just reveal that instead. Yes, the game has too many villains, but you can also see why each one was there and what they intended to do. And then being included even without the time they needed shows that the creators found those themes important. And I found them moving enough still to make a video on them exactly because of that. Why is there bartending in this game? It adds a sense of struggle with odd jobs and the like, but it wasn't the best way to do that for certain. But someone on the team thought it was so important there's an achievement called "It's RJ's fault bartending is even in the game," and that tells me someone fought for this because they wanted to use something they loved to convey that idea. Why are there a few different motivations all coming together messily in the ending? Because to someone those are the game, the thing that led them to make it. They were true, they were real. Even if they're not totally cohesive with the story's narrative, they have an impact from the flaw because I know they weren't in there just for impact, just for drama. They were in there because they were the game for someone making it. All of these things are flaws. They take the game away from perfection. But they achieve the purpose of art just as well as any big budget production because of how distinctly human they make it. I see the people behind it, I see their work, and I want to like and respect it. For as much as I love Satoshi Kon's movies, I would have been able to know very little about the man. I can guess he likes movies from Paprika and, well, making them, and I can guess some of his emotions from this recurring kind of middle-aged director character, but I don't know what he did in his downtime, what his interests were. He is his work to me. With Unbeatable, I would wager real money that one of the creators goes to local music shows and cocktail bars, maybe both at once in their spare time, because only that kind of person says, this is a crucial experience to put in the game and I'm doing it at the cost of making it messier. And that's kind of like cheating, because when a game is so clearly someone's work, being unkind to it is like being unkind to them. I can't insult this game without insulting a person, something that was important to them. It's basically like the good version of why every company has a dumb human mascot with a personality now. We find it harder to hate something with a face. But here, instead of stealing money away from you via psychological manipulation, which almost all advertising is, it's just making it easier for the creator to convey their point. They don't have to make everything super mega polished because they're basically next to you the whole time, guiding you to what to feel. It makes you forgive the little missteps and say, don't worry, I'll fill in the blanks, because you absolutely adore the excitement with which they're telling the story, even if it means they miss a few things. The game didn't have the tact to tell you the story perfectly. The people behind it didn't have the skill to do that yet. But it still made you feel everything it was meant to. It used music to take an undercooked rivalry and turn it into some of the most badass stuff out there, because even if Rest didn't have much development, that theme is f***ing imposing, man. It is literally fighting itself like you fight her. It used long monologues about emotions in the past to tell you more than show you, but that still gets you to the point you need to be to the next bits where they do show instead of tell. The story doesn't need to show you everything so long as the goal to make someone feel something still gets achieved. This, with heart behind it to fill those holes, does all a story is meant to do. So no, it didn't get there in the most technically perfect way. No, it won't be remembered as the greatest game of all time. But it will be remembered. It'll be remembered when someone orders one of the drinks they learned from it and thinks about the game for a second. It'll be remembered when someone picks up a guitar and convinces them to play again and thrashes out a few chords from one of its songs. It'll be remembered in that feeling in your gut on a summer night, those butterflies trying to escape into the dying light and see more of the world than these oppressive systems design them to, straining against work, against loss and depression just like Beat, yet at each and every day waking up to take another chance. It won't be remembered in exact words. It'll be remembered in feelings. It'll be remembered as a part of us and a part of others from how we pass on those emotions to them. That kind of eternity doesn't come about from perfection. It comes about from just making something fucking human. This video probably should have ended. It was a tight 35 minutes. Every part of it felt natural. I did good, interesting transitions and editing and music and all that, but sometimes you're going through it and you have that familiar realization of, you're writing to yourself, idiot. And it's because I thought I got Beat on a more logical level. Like, I thought it was too different from her to feel it, but then you just realize, like, just fuck, man. You see it and you're like, well, sometimes things aren't good for me either. Sometimes I don't have to have the same situation to feel it. It's like kind of the same thing of, like, I thought the band was going somewhere. I thought I was in it, and then they said, you don't have it. That's what it feels like happened to me over these past few years. And I don't even know what it is. I don't think I can know, because everything I make has to pass through some black box whose engineers don't even know what's inside of it. Maybe it was just certain topics, or maybe it was identity, maybe it was algorithm changes or Mercury in retrograde. I have no clue. There is no way to analyze the success or failure of a YouTube channel because there are 20 million factors uploaded daily. Anyone who says they know what works is a goddamn liar. All those stupid thumbnail faces and 10 zooms a second and shouting don't inherently work. It's just that someone popular did it. Everyone copied it, assuming that's what made them popular. Some of those copies succeeded because of course some would, and now it's the standard, so people expect it. It doesn't work, but because it's a conscious choice that you have to make to edit more, and we desire to have control, it will always be the attribution once luck shines, because then you feel like you deserve it. I don't know if that actually adds anything to the topic, but I'm leaving it the fuck in because it pisses me off, and that's a genuine part of who I am. But the short of it is, there is no recipe to success. I don't know what made me successful to begin with, and I don't know what made me fall off a cliff. All I can do is guess. So take this all with a grain of salt, especially because it feels like I was basically grown in a lab for the purpose of self-hatred. Like, how does that one song go? I'll somehow frame a narrative where all my actions have some evil aim. But one guess which feels more real than the rest is, well, feeling less real. My life, and by extension myself, is a lot different than when I started making these kinds of videos. My first video essay, if you can even call it that, was back in 2018. I sounded like this.
So, Akame ga Kill. It's probably one of the closest things to a guilty pleasure anime for me.
And my first one on camera a year later looked like this. I looked like this. Holy fuck, man. And it says 1080p 60, but that's a lie. That's some 720-30 from a cheap camcorder that I got because it's what my high school used. I did not know what cameras were. My backdrop is clothes? Actually, it's worse. It is bright red basketball shorts. There's no lighting, so you can hardly see me. The audio was recorded on a Guitar Hero microphone, and this transition I was super proud of at the time is, well, you've seen it. I don't even have time to comment on the writing. But when I see and hear this, especially that transition, I don't cringe, I smile. I know I can't remember how it felt, but it feels like I remember how it felt to sit there and play that transition back over and over and over and just be full of pride with what I'd created, with what was at the time actually the best I'd ever done. And when you see that, what can you expect? This is a dumb kid in their dumb room making a video about something they're passionate about. It cannot be anything else because there is nothing impressive, no production value. It can only be passion. While it looks and sounds like crap, it is an effective love letter to psychopaths for that reason. I think that's why it makes me smile. It was something so genuine about this person that they decided to put it out despite all those flaws. I can only see the best in that. I can only cherish that and hope it grows. And it did grow. You all cherished it for some reason I can never comprehend, and it led to this and everything in between. It led me to watching more, reading more, developing skills I turned into professional work, and an ability for insight that led me through the most painful moments of my life and let me be an aid for others, however small, in theirs. It's an overwhelming feeling to be respected, to be assistive, to be this. The kid in that video didn't know any of that on their 0 hours a week schedule. But the adult, once again on 70 or so, has felt it all, and that's all I need to say to prove that the passion is still there. Because it's not easy to keep doing this. God damn, do I just want to relax for one night, see a park at dusk during the week, or a Saturday afternoon in general? I want to make out on the titty sphinx in the graveyard and play a video game at 1 a.m., I mean, fuck, man, I want the youth that I worked away back, and I want to stop working away the fading away remnants of it. But I don't, because it's worth this. Because I don't just love this, I am this. I will be truly insulted if anyone takes this as me saying that YouTube is somehow just a job now. Believe me, it doesn't even make close to enough to be just a job now. But it's undeniable that this isn't the same as this. The kid in that grainy footage speaking muffled words is nothing more than an average person with more passion than sense. They never even thought about what kind of camera to buy, and they didn't even buy a microphone. They knew nothing but the passion. The adult in this Fujifilm XS10 with the Viltrox 1.433 recorded, Gladiator teleprompter on a Manfrotto 055 tripod red, HyperX Solocast K&M mic stand captured, well-lit set video still has more passion than sense, but also more gear than sense too. The passion is still there, maybe greater even, but it's behind more expensive layers of glass, more museum than friend. Couldn't that be the problem? That a kid in their room turned into a wannabe filmmaker taking a whole day to record because the thought of cinematic transitions was too enticing, even though most people probably don't even get to watch the visuals because they're at work? Like, I could list 1,000 examples, but that's probably it right there. Who is this for? Is it to make someone feel something, or is it to be impressive, build a portfolio, put the star on top of the tree, as Yukon Cornelius says, looky what he can do? I want to say it's for me, or that it's for you, communicating something still, and most times it is. The intro to Worlds Where You Are Illegal sets a mood, and the same goes for the consequences of infinity. I sat down and considered what kind of reaction each would invoke, and even the body swap video expressed love for the included series, if nothing else. It was all still genuine. But it was also because I needed to, like Beat says, get more juice for the squeeze. I need to have something I could do in my limited time to show off to people who might give me money to do a thing I'm good at, because the walls were closing in and I didn't want to have to spend over half my waking hours somewhere I hated. It was because no matter how much we say art for art's sake, I want to wake up without dreading the next 10 hours for once. I want to not be running around 24/7 for once. It was because there's this always present pressure to become more professional as you age, to not be judged as amateur since it doesn't square with age. To prove to my family that I'm doing something productive, I swear, just look at it. It was because somewhere along the line, I got an idea of all of that and of the title I desire and why I want to be seen as it. I was still messy. I don't think I ever stopped being an open book, but I wasn't a mess anymore. I was a character to some degree, the writer who's a bit crazy but because maybe they're smart, the filmmaker who rushes around mad but for a pretty end result. The mess had become a part of the production, a part of the narrative written for myself, observed through a nice camera and good lighting. Each piece of gear, each aspect of the character, an additional flourish had to make me further and further away, a better product but a worse human. Even the writing. I know my writing has gotten better. I pour my heart into each set of notes and then outline, sometimes a second outline, and then the script, and then each cut of the script, and each one is so much better than it used to be. But should it be? Does that square with what the point of it is, what the audience can understand and want? Even if I'm saying more doesn't always mean better. Is it relatable to hear someone speak about ancient Greece when you clicked on Avatar? Whether from capitalism or ego, and the weight of those two things, whichever is more true, my reality was tainted with fiction. Maybe Mima would be a fitting name. The passion never died, but so much got between it and you. Did you still think of me as someone in their bedroom full of passion? Do you now think of me as slowly getting out of touch? I don't know, and I can't help what you say. But I at least want it to be based in reality, so here we go. You know why I like Unbeatable so much? You know why I'm on the side of flaws in art? Because I can be just as goddamn a fucking mess as everyone else. I never had a sick mother, and I was never kicked out of a band, but I'm still pretty fucking beat. The shit I do is the shit I am. So when I get to do less and less of it with each passing month, I feel terrible because it's not even me feeling anymore. It's some tool of a corporation pretending to feel. And each time I feel like I've clawed a bit back, or each time I've got adjusted to the little less they give me, even more is fucking taken away. And that's a little bit more of me taken away every time. Less time I get to be awake as the person I'm supposed to be and instead exist as the fucking tool, a brain and a body, but myself is left at fucking home because that's what you get paid for. I doubt myself every day. I get excited at the hints and then I fall off a cliff. I avoid myself and my feelings by throwing myself at it again and again and again, and sometimes that makes me a dick. I have ruined so many relationships because I couldn't stop working, because if I did, I might have to define the shit I do, and thus the shit I am. Maybe I'm a writer, but I'm sure as shit no filmmaker no matter how much gear I have, namely because films take a crew and I'm too lonely and afraid to ask for help, because if someone sees behind the scenes and how fucked up this whole process is, then they'll see the imposter in their syndrome. I get more and more to make doing it alone easier when the skills I really need to develop and know I need to develop are, hey, friend, would you want to be a part of something cool with me? And no amount of money buys that for real. Look at this nasty fade because I forgot what the fuck continuity was, or how the light changes here because I had to reshoot everything I fucked up the focus on. I get to edit out and around all of the fuck-ups for you, but there are a lot. And I have all these ideas overflowing my notes app and my drive, but I'm so terrified of risking it with a big project that I'll probably be 80 and still making an hour a month, because if nothing ever stopped me, I would just be saying, but I need to practice a bit more before I do anything bigger. I've recently limited myself to recording on Saturdays because that's the day where I look like this, even though 90% of the week, this is how I'm sitting here. I'm not that pretty. And there are some reasons I deeply hate for why this is. I really hate the idea of them having been seen for reasons you can guess. But this is where I see that kid full of passion the most. This is where I see someone with no need for validation or employment or justification for gear, but just a goddamn person. This is where I see relatability and honesty and reality. And I'm trying so hard, I've been trying so hard not to be that person. Hours of effort to be less relatable. But that's what felt required. Everything I saw made me feel like better production value meant better stuff. Every aspect of this society proved that a product to sell is the only sustainable way. And what the fuck product do I have but myself? I learned to deal with that, even if it meant on most days there wasn't even a thought of me truly existing. I love Unbeatable because it says that not all of that is necessary. Some of it is. There has to be something interesting, a style, an indication of effort, a polish on the key aspect, something that not everyone can do. But that doesn't mean you have to polish what no one is there for. You don't need to make a studio album for people who just want community, and you don't need to resolve every detail of a story for people who just want a game with feel. I want to make that stupid movie that helps someone understand themselves. I want to write that dumb book that captures a moment of feeling and time, and works like this mean so much because they prove you don't need to practice forever. You don't need to wait until you're a pro. You don't need to be perfect. You just have to do it with heart, and then do it again and again and again, or refine it again and again and again until it's all it needs to be. The first immediate try won't be it, and neither will the second or even the third. But if you iterate enough, if you keep trying enough, then it doesn't need to be forever away either. Sometimes that attempt that works is just some kids deciding to actually make that game after school, and now it becomes years of their lives where they develop the skills live. Sometimes it's just a messy bitch in a room with too much love for pointless things doing the same. I'm gonna keep trying to make things look and feel better. This world is unideal with its pressures, and so I have to. And if I didn't include this, then the whole video also is kind of like a message against developing skills. It's not that. The difference isn't that I'm gonna stop growing, but that I'm not gonna hurt myself for it anymore. I'm not gonna say I'm not ready to avoid it anymore. I'm gonna do the things that are new so I keep progressing, so that I keep making real mistakes like a real person. And I guess it's just like I'm sorry if it felt like I was hidden. When I think of someone who used to watch me, who used to find insight in what I could say, possibly leaving because I no longer felt real, it's like I want to cry because I failed someone I could have helped. Because I valued some notion of perfection more than just giving someone what they needed, however justified their perception was. Maybe the better production values have drawn in more people, and maybe the lower ones also drove some away themselves, so I don't even know what's a real fear or not anymore. I don't know anything. But whatever the case, I don't want to try to make myself perfect because I know there's no good in that. So I'm right here, and I hope I'll make good mistakes with heart behind them. I guess that's it.